Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's live training slash seminar. Thanks for joining. I'm Catherine Agupjan, and I run Sisters for Fi. And today we are going to be talking about retirement options. More importantly, the saving vehicle options you have to save for retirement, why to do it, and how. And it's a topic that may or may not resonate with you yet, especially if you are young and healthy and have a long way to go. But I'd like for you to rethink retirement as a way for you to reach financial independence sooner rather than waiting for when you turn 65. Thanks for joining. Okay, so I will share my screen today. Okay, what I will cover in today's session are some of the retirement savings options that are available for many of us, starting from perhaps when we first get that job. So nowadays, a lot of the retirement savings is up to the individual, to the employee to cover, instead of having pensions that a company sponsors and kind of locks you in and provides for you. A lot of the laws and regulations have moved away from pensions and really put the onus on the individual to start saving for retirement. I think the big thing with retirement is that you deserve to live in abundance when you're in your old age. So right now you might be working very hard to kind of pay for the day-to-day expenses for your family, for yourself, and it might be hard to save for retirement, but I urge you and encourage you to really rethink that mindset, because as you grow older, you'd want to make sure you have enough money to live well in your old age. And the thing is that we don't stop spending money in retirement. Saving early and often has the most benefits for you as you age. And really, if you have a strong retirement fund, you have a lot more options than most people. You can pursue work optionally. You might be able to travel more, or you might be able to continue working at a job that you want to do. So keep that in mind. And as you kind of work towards this, your future self will thank you for planning ahead and having that savings intact. For a lot of us, we're living longer. Many of us are living 20, 30 years past that retirement age. And we all need money to survive for those 20 to 35 years. Yes, Social Security will be there for some, but sometimes it may not be enough depending on what your expenses are. So it's critical to start thinking ahead. And if you don't end up using your retirement, then you can pass it on to help improve the next generation, or perhaps give it to a charity that you feel would kind of improve the next generation's lives. All right, so what are your retirement options? And the big thing with this is that it actually depends on who you work for. So it can be, there's employer sponsored accounts where the organization sponsors a plan for you. So what this means is that your company might hire an investment firm to bring in a retirement plan, and they would have chosen certain aspects of that plan to give to their employees, but it's available if you are an employee and if you meet certain requirements within that company. The second option is if you work for yourself. So if you are self-employed, maybe you're part of the gig work economy, or maybe you just started your own business, you have different retirement options too. There's also the potential that if you work for both an external organization as well as you work for yourself, you have both options. You can tap into two types of retirement options. And the last are those for people who perhaps stay home with children, stay-at-home moms or parents. There are retirement options for you. And this is something that's important to think about. So if you stay home and you're not earning income. What that means is that you're not saving for yourself and not investing. What that also means is that you don't have access to a regular retirement plan. And what you can do is actually open up a unique or a special retirement plan that's available for mostly everyone. And that's one thing that you can tap into, which I'll cover in a little bit. All right, so let's break down what some of these examples are. So if you work for an organization, this means you either work for state or local government or a local entity, public education. These are teachers, maybe administrators for schools, churches, nonprofits, and or private or public corporation employees. You have access to certain retirement plans. Now, the names of these plans vary depending on what area you're in. And these plans just refer to the tax code in the IRS. They're not necessarily unique or specific. They just refer to the section in the IRS that explains how these plans are taxed. I'm going to cover in this particular presentation just the 401k plan because I think it's what most people would have for those working for a company, whether it's private or public. But if you do work, if you're a teacher, work for a nonprofit, you work for the government, I encourage you to look into these other plans, 403B and 457, and see what's possible for you to join, to kind of enter into so you can contribute towards that as well. With these plans, there are maximum contributions. So depending on the plan, what the options are for 2020, so this year, you can contribute up to $19,500 to these plans. Now, most of these plans will also be pre-tax. So what that means is that it will lower the amount of your taxable income. So if you make $100,000 a year and you contribute $19,500, it will lower your taxable income. And this is good if you make a lot of money because it'll kind of drop you down in the tax bracket, but still allow you to save. I also encourage you, if you are an employee in any of these sectors, is to really dig deep into your employee handbook. And I say that because many of us, when we start work, we get caught up and busy with the to-do lists of our day-to-day, and we may not be reading into all of the benefits that work provides. And a lot of these are in the employee handbook, and it's important that we kind of look into that and kind of maximize as much that we can. So for the 401k plan, these are for you who work in private or public corporations. You would have access to the ability to contribute to these. Some work plans may have certain restrictions, like you have to be employed within the company for a certain time frame and those things. So keep that in mind as you kind of start work and figure out what your retirement plans are. So there is a unique section within the 401k plan, and that's called the employee matching. It's fairly common, and what that means is that if you contribute a certain amount to the 401k plan, your company will also match that contribution. Now, it's not going to be like 100. It depends on what the company guidelines are, but it could be a significant amount if you take advantage of it and contribute it. Some people call this free money. I hesitate to use that term because there's really no such thing as free money, but the employee matching is really part of, like, I feel like it's part of your compensation, and it's something that you should maximize and contribute to make sure that you earn it and have it. There is also something called a vesting schedule that may apply. So if you contribute to any of these plans, all of your contributions are yours. But for any of these matches, the company may have a schedule in place where 50% of the matches vest, so it's available for you for one in a year, and then the rest after 2 years of employment. So there's some things that you want to look out for as you work through your retirement plans. And a lot of people underestimate how long they stay in a job for. So I think it's critical for us to even start contributing to these plans if there's a match, to make sure that you are already at the get-go and investing as early as you can. All right, so how do you get started with these plans? Your first point of contact should be HR. They will have the options for you. What they'll do is provide you all of the information you need to either create an account, enroll in the program, and figure out what to do from there. Next is you'll decide how much you'll contribute from each paycheck. They most likely will have calculators for you to use, and depending on what your expenses are, your other needs, it's important for you to decide how much that is from each paycheck. So it doesn't, so you save it first. That's mostly what happens, and you don't necessarily end up spending that money afterwards. A third thing too is that contribute up to the company match if you're able to. And then once you do contribute, verify that these contributions are actually invested. What normally happens is that some of these, your contributions are taken out from your paycheck automatically and put into the retirement plan. Some plans will put it in what's called a sweep account, which is just like a money market account, and it's not really earning anything. It's not really invested into anything. So a lot of people make this mistake sometimes that, hey, that money is already being withdrawn and moving into my plan, and that's it. But you actually have to pick out what you'll be invested in. So make sure you do that, verify that. Otherwise, you'll miss out on gains and dividends if you don't do that. And as you as you kind of earn more and maybe optimize your expenses, increase your contributions each year until you're able to max it out. I think that's the best. 1% a year, you probably won't feel it as far as like lowering down your monthly take home, and then increasing it year by year means that you're not also like running up with the lifestyle inflation. The next area is if you work for yourself. So these are some of the self-employment plans available for people who work for themselves. There's a lot of options here, and I'm only going through some of the basics. I would highly recommend that you reach out to your business accountant to make sure you're selecting the right retirement plan for yourself and for your employees if you have a few employees within your business. I will focus on the IRA portion of this, but I'll cover the other options as well. So the IRA is an individual retirement account, and it's best for those just starting out. So if you're not making a lot or you're saving less than $6,000 a year, this is the option for you, and it's widely available to everyone. It does have, so you can contribute up to $6,000 for 2020. There are also some catch-up contributions. So if you're over a certain age, you can you can contribute a little bit more to make sure that you have enough for when you do choose a retirement at 65. And then because this is you contributing to this particular plan, there's no employer contributions since you're working for yourself. There is in the solo 401k and the SEP IRA, you yourself are both the business owner as well as the employed, and there are ways for you to maximize that out. So you pay yourself as an employee of your business and also the employer of your business. So for that, like you can max out up to 57,000 in 2020, and similar for both like solo 401k and the SEP IRA. Again, make sure you kind of review these because there are some requirements if you have employees and you want to make sure they also receive like a similar retirement structure for their future. So important to keep that in mind. So how do you get started with these plans? So again, first, discuss with your accountant the best option for you. This could vary depending on how much you're making, what type of business you're in, and if you have years where business is so good that you want to save as much, and maybe a year where it's not so good, so you're going to pull back on your savings. Keep that in mind. You can open an account through an online or a physical brokerage. This is your like Vanguards, Fidelities, All of these, and even a regular bank too, will have these options. Again, decide how much you'll contribute and make that automatic. The automatic is the key thing to make sure that every week or every month that payment is withdrawn from your checking account or your paycheck and going into that retirement account. Same thing here, verify that your contributions are actually being invested in something. Again, same thing, critical to make sure they're being invested as opposed to sitting in a sweep account that's earning like less than 0.01%. And same thing, increase your contributions each year until you're able to max it out. Once you're able to max it out, then that's you're kind of ahead of the game there. All right, so I'm also going to focus on an IRA. So an IRA stands for an individual retirement account, and the name sounds like is a little bit of a misnomer because it's not actually just for retirement. There's a lot of things you can use for an IRA, and but it's common for saving for retirement. It is, again, another savings vehicle, but it's available a lot more to people. So I just covered that if you are starting your own business and you're not making a lot of money, or you would only be contributing $6,000 for the year, an IRA is for you. But an IRA is also for you if you don't have an employer that sponsors you. So you may work for someone. You say you work retail or work for a restaurant, and they give you a paycheck. You have earned income, but they don't offer an employer sponsored retirement plan. So what you can do is open an IRA for yourself to get started with retirement. And you can also combine it with an employer sponsored retirement account. So you can maximize both out for yourself. All right, so there's two types of IRA. One is the traditional, and the difference between the two is just based on the taxation. So with the traditional IRA, the taxing happens later. So your taxes happen when you withdraw the money years from now. And what may happen is that you may receive an income deduction today. So it'll lower your income if you contribute to a traditional IRA. The Roth IRA means you pay taxes today. And what happens when you withdraw it at 59.5 is that you don't pay any taxes on your contributions and your gains. And this is one of the special retirement savings vehicles that's readily available to everyone and takes advantage of perhaps certain tax laws today. So if you feel like your income will increase down the line and you'll make more money and you'll be taxed at a higher rate later on, a Roth IRA can be good for you. A Roth IRA is also good if you're young, if you're not making as much money now. So this is the place for you to kind of park your money, let it grow for some time, and have it available when you're ready to take out 59.5. So for 2020, your max contributions for those are $6,000 for both of them. There are penalties if you want to withdraw from a traditional IRA. For the Roth, your contributions you can withdraw without any issues, but everything else, there's also a penalty. Now, there's also income limits for the Roth IRA. This is depending on how much you're bringing in. If you're single, it's 137, and I believe it's also phased out if you make more than that. So if you make like more than 137 as a single filer, there's a phase out available for you to do a max contribution to phase out the max contributions for you. If you're making under 203K, married, filing jointly, you can have a Roth IRA for both of yourself and your partner as well too. And this is what I will cover too for those stay-at-home parents. All right, so a few things. Should you pay off debt first or contribute to retirement? So this is a question that comes up often, especially if you're if you're young and have student loan debt that you're kind of paying off, and or if you got into some credit card debt or any other healthcare debt that you might want to tackle first. Debt-free living is great living, but it doesn't build wealth. So again, debt-free living is great, but you need to make sure that you have a plan once you start making that money back. You're not putting that money towards debt, that it is also being invested to grow over time. So if possible, do both. And there are options out there for you to follow for the financial order of operations. And what this means is that you might contribute up to the company match, you might pay down the high interest debt, or you might increase and then maximize other tax advantage accounts in the process. So it really depends on what your goals are, what your current debt and interest rates are, and what you have available to you to maximize, to ensure that you have tax advantaged accounts. And the reason there's options for you to do this. So the big thing is that if you contribute pre-tax, so you pay taxes later, you take advantage of that one option. And then if you pay taxes now, you take advantage of that option. So when you withdraw it later, there's no taxes. And it's really hard to predict what's going to happen to the tax rates in the future. So if you are able to take advantage of both, at least you hedge your bets a little bit in case something does happen with one or the other. Next thing, should you save for retirement or college costs? And this is a question that comes up for a lot of people, especially as the cost of college and education is soaring, especially in the US. First thing, retirement first. Primarily because you can't borrow for retirement. That's a big thing. And there's ways to reduce college costs now. I would recommend that if you're worried about college costs, to really start thinking ahead of how to hack college in a way. There is a bunch of great resources to help you lower the cost of college beyond just scholarships. And this can be going from kind of getting your degree. This can mean like not going to college, but going to a trade or getting a certificate in some sort of online skill instead. It can also mean going to community college for the first 2 years, which saves you a few $1,000s before going to a university to finish out your degree. This can also mean working part-time or working full-time and going to school part-time and helping your employer help pay for your degree. So there's a lot of options. Think ahead about that too. If you still have young children and whatnot, that you should try to maximize your retirement savings first before college costs. For stay-at-home parents, I think this is important. So you can open, it's called a spousal IRA, but it's basically just like an IRA in your name, as long as your filing status is married, filing jointly. And what this means is that you, if you're stay-at-home parent or stay-at-home mom and you are not earning income, but your partner is, you can take advantage of that income and be able to put away that $6,000 max towards your own personal IRA. And this is widely available for you to use. No penalties to do it. You just have to make sure that your adjusted income, I believe, is $203,000 a year. So something to keep in mind if you want to continue contributing to your retirement plan and you want to have something under your own name too. This is a great way to pay yourself over time so that there's something for you when you do finally retire and when the kids are out of the house. All right. So again, a reminder that these accounts are just savings vehicles at this point. So basically think of it as a car, and what you need to do is fill that car with your investments. So if you don't fill it with investments, the car can keep going and keep driving for 40 years, however long you keep it, and there may be nothing inside it. So you have to make sure that you find the investments that work for you, and make sure you're selecting those and putting your money to work. Now, conventional wisdom will recommend that low-cost index funds that cover the total stock market for a long-term hold is the way to go for these investments. That's the simple answer to what you should invest in. But if you want something, if you have a unique circumstance, I would speak with a financial advisor to help you through that process. And the last thing too is to make sure this is automated. Automate everything. Your contributions so that you don't have to think about it, and it's prioritized before spending. What I usually recommend is that for your employer sponsored accounts, normally they'll take out what you've designated as the contribution. So it could be a percentage, or it could be an amount from your paycheck each week, month, however that it gets divvied up, and then it automatically gets transferred. Even before your paycheck hits your checking account, it automatically gets transferred to your retirement plan, and then the rest of your money goes to your checking account. And the same, and then for the post-tax one, I would also recommend automating that. So by the time your paycheck hits, you get that money the next day, you're contributing to your post-tax account, like your Roth IRA, and then the rest of your bills and every other savings and debt reduction strategies you have. So that's something that you want to make sure you do so that you don't forget about it over the long term. Okay, all right, so I'm going to switch gears here, and I am going to show you just a quick share of compound interest. So it's interesting because a lot of us, especially when we're young, we don't necessarily think about retirement, right? If I am 25 and I'm supposed to retire at 65, that's a long way. That's a long way. It's something I don't want to think about, or maybe something that like, well, it's not in my purview yet. I don't see myself being old or growing old, so I don't want to think about that for myself. But the best thing to do is imagine yourself in the future. What kind of life do you want to live, especially if perhaps you no longer have the health that you had when you're at 25, 35? Do you still want to be working in whatever job you're at? Do you, perhaps you want to just have a change of passion, and you want to instead follow a different path for the rest of your golden years? That's an area of that money can help you do that. And this is why saving is important. So let's take, for example, let's do a simple compound interest. Let's do a compound interest calculation. So compound interest is what makes money grow over time. And if invested properly, it means you don't have to work for time. Your money instead works for it. So here's an example. So say we do an initial investment of 6,000. That's the max for the IRA for this year. So if you do that 6,000 and you continue to do that for the next however many years. So let's do monthly contribution of 500. And you can, of course, play with these numbers to see what you're comfortable with. But I love to show this because it's like a great way to just see how like changing a value, increasing your monthly contribution can really affect your savings down the line. And you invest for 40 years, and that's a long time, but if it's automated, you don't think about it and it's there. And we have an interest rate of 7. So this is very conservative. If you are investing aggressively, this could be in the 8%, 9%, which gives you a lot of higher return. So let's do maybe a variance of 2, and let's compound annually. And here are the results, right? So if you do a 6,000 initial investment, 500 every month for 40 years, you'd have $1 million by the time you retire. If you do this at 25, at 65, you'll have this amount of money, which is significant in a sense to have. And this is the change too. If it's above, if the market is doing really well, right? Over time, it does grow. So if it's a 9% interest rate, then you're looking at a $2.2 million. So that's crazy. That's something you can live off. And if you live to be 100, then you have that money for the 35 years that you are alive, which is possible and can happen. So yeah, so that's an option. Play around with that, see what's possible for you. And For those that are not participating in the employer sponsored accounts, you can simply open your account, your retirement account, through any of the brokerages online. Like Fidelity is popular, Vanguard is popular. Let me see if I can pull up Vanguard. So you just need to open an account and figure out what you want to do to save for. And let's see, same thing for Vanguard. I believe theirs is, you can read more about it, as well as M1 Finance. It's a great tool that's available. A lot of like 20 and 30 somethings are using M1 to using their automated algorithm for that. So those are a lot of common things that you can use for this. So I think that's basically it for this. So yes, so keep in mind, again, retirement seems like a long way, and if you feel that retirement is that far, what you might want to think about is the FIRE movement. So the FIRE movement is the Financial Independence Retire Early movement, and the goal of that is to actually move that retirement early on. And there are specific strategies that you can follow to get you a little bit closer to that early retirement age. And I think I'll cover that in the next session. So we have an intro to that particular movement. So I appreciate you guys tuning in today, and I will leave this presentation for those that want to read it again within the comments and notes section. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment below or let me know if there are any questions.